Hey guys, welcome to Elevated Systems. I'm your host CJ, and this is the brand new 2021 iMac featuring the Apple M1 SoC. I ordered this last month on the morning it launched, and it just arrived today. Now, this is a retail system. I purchased it myself. It's not one of the early samples from Apple. Some of those reviews were up earlier this week, but I purposely didn't watch any of them. Nor did I watch any of the reaction videos back when this iMac was announced. I didn't want anyone else's opinion to influence mine, but of course, I heard the complaints. It's been impossible to avoid everything. I've heard the complaints about the chin, the white bezel, the lack of I/O, but let's get this thing unboxed and see how it actually looks in person. Hello. Okay, first, let me tell you what specs I got. This is the full 8-core GPU, 16 gigabytes of memory, and a 256 gigabyte SSD. And yes, I got the boring silver one. I know all those color options, and I just went with silver. There's a reason, and I'll get to that, but let's get the rest of the stuff out of the box. Okay, here's the Magic Keyboard, and this is the upgraded version, so it does have the Touch ID sensor and the Magic Mouse. I've actually never used a Magic Mouse or keyboard before. I know about the gestures for the mouse, but what makes the keyboard magic, besides the Touch ID on this one, of course, seems pretty much like the wireless membrane type Logitech keyboards I've used. Anyway, maybe I'll figure it out as I get to using this. Also, new for the iMac, the power brick, which does have the Ethernet port, which is pretty cool actually. That's one less wire to run to the physical computer itself. Of course, the base model doesn't have this, so that's something to keep in mind. And this is the lightning cable. I assume this is for charging the keyboard and the mouse. There's only one, but I assume, both of these won't die at the same time. And if you're a longtime Apple user, you probably have several of these in a drawer somewhere. Wait. Seriously, the charging port is on the bottom of the mouse? Is that like a real thing? Okay, I've never had a Magic Mouse, and I'm sure it has like a super long battery life, but pretty much every rechargeable mouse I've ever used died when I was actually using it. Anyway, let's just forget I saw that for now, and let's look at this marvel of modern technology. So, to be honest, it's pretty cool. An entire desktop computer, 4.5K display, all in an 11mm thick package, but it's not that impressive. Now, hear me out. Yes, the M1 chip is very impressive. I've said that several times while I was test driving the M1 Mac Mini. The M1 is the reason, as a lifelong PC user, I decided to buy a Mac and now a second one. But the super thin design of this iMac, it's just a given, right? After all, it's just an M1 MacBook Pro in a different package, and how thin is that? Strip the keyboard from it, and it's even thinner. The new M1 iPad Pro, same thing, different package, and that's even thinner than this. So yes, it's cool, and I'm sure there are plenty of settings where this form factor will fit, like if you have it out in a common area of your home and it's being used exactly as Apple is marketing it, as the all-purpose family computer. But for me, personally, my desk is like 36 inches deep. Sitting in front of the thing, I don't really care how thin it is. Now, as far as what I do notice, the widely criticized chin and the white bezel, guess I'll start with the chin. And honestly, the chin is just an iMac thing, right? I mean, going back to the G5 in 2004, it's kind of the iconic look of the iMac. And personally, knowing that it's an all-in-one, I don't mind it. And I'm sure most people upgrading from the older 21.5 or 27-inch iMac really won't mind it either. Now, playing devil's advocate, could they have gotten rid of the chin? Sure, even though the entire computer is actually in the chin, the logic board, all the I/O, the speakers are in there, but up here is just screen and some of the cooling elements. Plenty of room for what's in here up here. Again, the new iPad Pro doesn't have a giant chin. As far as the bezel, white, black, I mean, freaking magenta, it doesn't matter. I don't see a need for a bezel at all. Maybe a very thin top bezel for the camera, but I think from an engineering standpoint, the bezel is where the front glass is actually glued to the frame. I mean, that's how it worked with previous iMacs. The alternative would be a friction fit, where the glass fits inside the aluminum frame. Two problems with that. First, tolerances have to be much more precise, so therefore more expensive, and it makes removing the glass much more difficult. Now, making stuff harder to get into may seem like it's right up Apple's alley, but I dare to say even some of the more experienced techs at the Genius Bar would be hard-pressed to remove a friction-fit glass panel of this size without breaking it. I'm not going to get into right to repair today. Yes, Apple actively lobbies against it. No, they're not the only tech company to do so. If you're interested in that topic, I'll put a link to Louis Rossman's page below. Be sure to check it out and support that movement if it interests you. I'm just going to get back to the bezel. They're white, just like they were from 99 to like 07, I think. The G4, G5, and I think even the first Intel iMacs all had white bezels. In 07, when the first aluminum chassis were released, that's when they transitioned to black bezels. So this is just a throwback to pre-Intel Macs, and I think it's just the final to Intel as they transition away from them to Apple Silicone, but maybe it's just more about going back to the iMac roots, because they certainly did in more ways than you may even be aware of, starting with the colors. The original iMac G3 was first released in Bondi Blue and then in like 5 or 6 other colors, and they weren't just random colors. They were actually the colors of the, well, not the original logo, but the first Apple logo. The new iMac colors are those colors. The white bezels, the first LCD panel iMac, the G4, had white bezels, but it didn't have a chin. Even the limited I/O goes back to the G3. The G3 just had like an Ethernet port and 2 USB 1 ports, which was like unheard of in '99. The base model M1 Mac, just 2 Thunderbolt ports. Even the prices are the same. The G3 in '99 and the base model M1 iMac in 2021 both had a launch price of $1,299. Man, that's crazy, right? But to finish off with the bezels, I think maybe a year or two ago, probably when plans for this design were being nailed down, the white bezels maybe made sense and fit the target demographic of this computer. But now, especially with the overwhelming prevalence of dark mode everywhere, not so much. Although, in my workspace, the walls are about the same shade of white, so it'll probably just blend into the background, to be honest. I think with the colors and the white bezel, Apple is again going back to the roots of the iMac by taking it out of that back corner office where it's just a desktop computer and putting it in the family room where it's a family-friendly piece of tech. I mean, you enable Siri voice activation, and it can be a family computer and take the place of gadgets like the Echo Show, the Google Hub, or Facebook Portal. Okay, that's my impression so far, but to really figure this thing out, I need to get it powered on and test out some of the features, so let's skip ahead. Okay, now I just quickly set up the Mac, no problems, and the first thing I wanted to check out was the iMac 4.5K display, and as expected, the resolution, brightness, color accuracy, viewing angle, all awesome. I mean, a killer display is what iMacs are known for, and this is now the best display I own as far as all the things I just mentioned. However, the one problem I do have with it, and pretty much every iMac display, is it's shiny. Now, it does look like they've made improvements with the anti-reflectivity of the glass, and when a light image is displayed, like the color matched desktop background Apple preloaded on the iMac, there's hardly any noticeable reflection, even with all the lighting I currently have on in this room. But as soon as I switch to a darker background or display, like every creative or productivity application I use, then I'm just looking at myself in the screen. I personally like a matte display, no reflection at all, but if you're moving from an older iMac, this is actually an improvement, so you should love it. The built-in speakers are okay and actually a little bit better than I expected from down-firing speakers inside this chin to actually sound. For listening to voice, then you have your vertically mounted GPU. You can see the compatible PCIe riser cable needs to be off the floor of the case. They're good. Voices sound rich and open and only a little wet, but not bad. Music, not so much. The bass response, again, better than I thought it'd be from these, but overall the sound was very tinny, so this is definitely headphone territory, which the built-in headphone jack on the side of the iMac was able to drive my Sennheiser HD 598 open headphones easily with great sound and no need for even my inline amp. So the next thing I wanted to look at was the built-in 1080p camera and microphone. So let's take a look. So this is raw video and audio recorded on the iMac using Photo Booth. Now this is recorded with my studio lighting all set up for recording this video, and at least on screen it looks pretty good. So this is what it looks like with just a single lamp on behind me and my regular room ceiling lights on. And again, on screen, it looks pretty good considering it's actually relatively dark in this area now. Okay, now basically just on the other side of the room, normal speaking voice, just the regular room ceiling lights on, and I'm a distance away from the computer, but from what I can see, again, it still looks pretty good. It looks relatively well lit. Not sure how the audio is going to come across, but you guys will be able to judge that for yourself, I think. I just went back and quickly looked through that footage, and at first glance, the completely lit shot was awesome. Now, when I got farther away from the camera, under just house lights, while the stationary background was pretty crisp, the moving target was a little blurry, but still, I've tested a lot of webcams, and for a built-in camera, this is one of the best from the few minutes of testing anyway. The microphone, however, probably the best I've tested. In that last shot, I was 6.5 feet from the camera, sitting next to my workstation, which was actively workstationing, so the fans were ramped up and my voice was loud and clear with only a small amount of reverb and no noticeable background noise. Okay, the final thing I want to test is the magnetic power cable. Now, I've shut down the Mac, I've unplugged it from the wall, so let's just give this thing a tug. Yeah, not really a MagSafe cable here. This thing actually seats in pretty pretty deep, and it holds on tightly enough that if you trip on the cable, it's very likely the iMac is crashing down with it. On the positive side, the connector is pretty beefy, so if the Mac survives, that connector probably survived too. Okay, let's recap. It's thin, cool, not earth-shattering. The chin, whatever. It's an iMac. The bezel, it should just go away regardless of color. Only 4 ports. It's an M1. We already knew about the limited I/O. I went in knowing that I'd need a USB or Thunderbolt hub anyway. Awesome display, still too reflective, but definitely an improvement. The camera and mic, 2 thumbs up. The MagSafe cable, too much mag, not enough safe. Now, finally, the reason this particular iMac is all wrong for me and I just shouldn't have bought it, height adjustment or lack of it. Now, I know Macs haven't had height adjustable stands since what, the G5 or was it the G4? I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is there was typically an option to remove the stand and add an Apple or third-party adjustable stand or VESA mount. As far as I know, that's not an option for this one, at least not after purchase. You can buy a VESA mount version of this iMac. You need to have your own VESA mount solution. It's BYOV. The VESA mount iMac doesn't come with any type of stand, but that's the one I should have purchased, and this is why. I plan on using the system here at my sit-stand desk. I actually want to test this iMac as a speed editor station, and I will be doing that. Be sure to get subscribed for that video, but I want the option to sit or stand while I do that, hence the height adjustable desk. Unfortunately, the inability to raise the display is not great when transitioning from sitting to standing. Having the ability to mount the iMac to an articulating arm like my workstation displays are would be perfect, and I can then position it very easily wherever it's comfortable. Mounting this iMac to an arm or VESA wall mount seems to make total sense for this super thin display. So why did I buy this version and why boring silver? Well, that's because after I'm done testing out the system, I'm very likely going to sell it to one of you at a deep discount because, to be honest, regardless of how well this system performs, if I don't have a permanent use for it, I'm not just going to stick it on a shelf to collect dust. That's not fair to a pretty cool and powerful computer. Plus, $1,800 is a big investment, especially for a small channel like mine, so recouping some of that investment will help me be able to buy the next cool piece of tech to share with y'all. The good news is, someone will be able to grab this iMac for a 30 to 40% discount. But for the next couple weeks, I will be putting it to the test in several areas. Now, this was just an unboxing and initial impressions of the system design. As far as performance, we know this will essentially perform exactly like my wife's M1 Mac Mini. I did several videos on that. There's a playlist linked in the description below if you're interested. However, there were a few things I didn't test that I can now. For example, there's an M1 compatible version of Parallels now, so I can install Windows and test Windows specific programs and maybe let my son install his favorite Steam games and see how he enjoys gaming on an iMac. Why not? I did a 3D design video on the Mini and had some requests to test other software like Blender, Maya, Cinema 4D. I'll see if any of those are viable here. Like I said, I plan on connecting my speed editor up and testing that out in DaVinci Resolve. And my daughter is a very talented artist, but actually both my daughters are. But another great use case for this iMac with its outstanding display and super fast CPU cores is as a digital art workstation. So I'll connect her Wacom and let my pumpkin get creative. I'm not gonna get crazy with the testing. This is, after all, not an iMac Pro. It's marketed as a basic home office or family computer, so I'm gonna let the whole family test it out. What do you want to see tested on the new iMac? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss any of the content. As always, if you like what you saw here, hit that thumbs up. If not, click the thumbs down twice. I'll get the message. I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, stay safe.